I see some familiar names joining us today. As we wait for folks to file in and settle, feel free to message in the chat box what institution you represent and also what state you're located in. We'll kick off in just a few minutes here. Wow, we have folks from all over. I see Oklahoma State, NAU, the New School, lots of New York representation, CUNY, Toro. Very cool. We'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes here. Okay, perfect. I think we can get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
And before you ask Jen, we can see your screen.
Amazing. I'm always worried about that. Well, first, just want to say thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. We know everyone has crazy calendars, so it's really appreciated. We're really excited to share with you all some of our learnings from talking to institutions about their assessment management processes, some tips for better reporting and time savings, as well as a live demonstration of our new assessment management solution. Thought it might make sense to kick off with some introductions here of ourselves. My name is Jen. I lead product marketing here at Coursedog. My primary responsibility at Coursedog is really to understand the needs and challenges of our customers and clients and make sure that gets translated back into our product strategy so that we're really building solutions that meet the needs of our community. Mohamed, I'll turn over to you for a quick introduction as well.
Perfect. Hey everyone, my name is Mohamed. I'm Director of AI and Assessment here at Coursedog. I lead the 2 amazing teams that build our assessment and our AI product, and excited to share more today.
Mohamed is really the star of the show today. Since we have a lot of newcomers joining us for this webinar, we thought it made sense to give a quick overview of who we are, what we do. At Coursedog, our mission is to eliminate operational barriers to student success. We really believe that operational processes like curriculum management, class scheduling, catalog, syllabus, assessment can all be really impactful for the student experience and are really critical for driving positive student outcomes. So what exactly do we do? We offer an academic operations platform that enables institutions to holistically manage the entire academic lifecycle within one solution with one bidirectional integration back to your SIS. We cover curriculum management, catalog, syllabus, academic scheduling, faculty workload management, event scheduling, assessment management, curriculum analytics, and course demand projections. So a wide variety of processes and solutions here. What we believe is that when you have a strong operating system, you can really transform some of these processes like curriculum management, like class scheduling, into strategic levers that can impact those student outcomes. So on the agenda for today, we've spoken to a lot of institutions about how they're currently managing assessment processes. We want to share out some of those insights with all of you and give you an idea of the current assessment landscape, some of the challenges that we hear folks experiencing, and also some of the tips and best practices that we hear institutions really implementing. Mohamed is also going to provide a live assessment demo So you can get an idea what we're building at Coursedog to help address for some of these challenges. We're also hard at work at developing additional AI features around assessment and accreditation that we want to provide all of you folks here today a sneak peek of, as well as an idea around the vision of the future when it comes to assessment and accreditation here at Coursedog. Feel free to pop in questions into that Q&A bar that you should see at the bottom of your screen throughout our conversation today. We have a few folks on the back end here that are ready to answer those questions as we go along our presentation. In addition, we have some extra time at the end. We're going to try to answer questions live as well. So first, we thought it might make sense to start out with a definition for assessment management. And some of you might feel like this is already well known, but when we spoke to institutions, what we actually found was that defining assessment management can really vary from institution to institution. So we thought it might make sense to first ground us in a common definition here. So assessment management really encompasses that annual assessment cycle, the inputs that feed into it, and the processes that the outputs feed into, including things like learning outcomes, measures, curriculum mapping, accreditation reports, program reviews, and course evaluations. In other words, this is a pretty complicated process that requires the management of a lot of different types of data to ensure that the assessment process at the end of this cycle is really ready for accreditation and driving continuous improvement at an institution. Given that we have such a large group of people here with us today, we thought it'd be really cool to actually better understand how all of you are currently managing your assessment accreditation processes, as well as some of the challenges you might experience, and so that everyone can also hear from other institutions about their current assessment accreditation processes. So if you're able to go to menti.com and enter this code that you see at the top of your screen, you'll actually be able to enter responses to this question. We'll be able to see them pop up on the slideshow here. Feel free to message in the chat if you have problems getting in. Mohamed, you might have to check for me again. Am I sharing the Menti slide?
Yes, I'm seeing
Okay.
responses come in.
Perfect.
This is the slide that says, what are the greatest challenges, right?
Oh, my bad. Here, this is the right one. If you already submitted, hopefully you can resubmit again and again, message in the chat if you can't. You guys got a sneak peek what's coming up next. I love whoever submitted how indeed with 3 question marks. Honestly, I feel like that was the majority of what we heard as well when we were talking to institutions. Lots of different responses here. Spreadsheets and emails we also heard was fairly common. It's complicated.
This is a lot of what I've heard over the last several months.
Yeah, Mohamed, would you agree that spreadsheets is kind of the most common response you got to this question?
Yeah, I mean, a variety of responses akin to like pen and paper, right? So not very well spreadsheets and email. And decentralize is interesting. It's something we can maybe touch on later in the presentation. But we've basically not taken a stance on, forcing schools to be centralized or decentralized. And so through the product, schools can really choose what degree of centralization they want. By this, I mean, you can choose to have everything at the assessment coordinator level or push some of that work to the program coordinators.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really interesting. If you thought you were alone in using spreadsheets, you're clearly not. You probably make up the majority here. Let's maybe move on to this next question now. What are the greatest challenges with your current assessment process? And I see actually a few folks have already gone ahead and submitted this, which is awesome. Any of these stand out to you, Mohamed?
Yeah, faculty participation is, I think, the number one thing that I've heard. Disconnected data sources is number two. And spreadsheets is part of the previous question, so I'll leave that one. But it's basically just how do you really manage the assessment process? How do you tame all this data that we're collecting? And that's assuming you've actually collected the data, right? That's assuming you've gotten the faculty involvement that you need. So funny enough, those are actually two big things that this platform focuses on, making it as easy as possible for faculty to provide the data that you need. And a sneak peek is faculty don't really have to do anything. They do what they do in Canvas and their LMS, and we pull the data automatically. And then the data collection part, I mean, you have data everywhere from your SIS to your LMS, and this is part of what you'll cover a bit, Jenn, or maybe already did. It's really hard to pull all that data together, plus the assessment data that the faculty have put together into a cohesive story.
Too many chefs in the kitchen. I love that phrase. I feel like it's a very accurate representation of the current assessment process for a lot of folks. This is awesome. Again, if you feel like you were the only one that is having challenges, I feel like you're probably in the majority here, seeing lots of common themes.
Alrighty, should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me go back to the presentation here. So this slide then is probably not a surprise to a lot of folks. I think it's exactly what you all have just entered into that mentee there. When we were speaking to institutions, what we found was basically this visualization, and it's supposed to be complicated for a reason, right? Because for a lot of institutions, what we heard was that assessment is inherently a pretty complicated process, and it's because there are a lot of chefs in the kitchen. So all these different inputs are being managed differently by different departments. Not only that, but a lot of this data just lives in different places, whether that's the LMS, the SIS, third-party vendors, spreadsheets, SharePoint, all of those examples that you all provided earlier. And because of the fact that this data lives in different locations, there's also a lot of manual data transfer going on. And not only is that, tedious, time-consuming, but also can result in data inaccuracy and really hurts the integrity of these eventual outcomes and findings. And finally, I think the most problematic impact here is that because of the manual data transfer, because of the fragmentation, it's really hard to actually aggregate and analyze this data to drive continuous improvement, which we know is the number one goal really of this assessment process. It's interesting because I think in the face of those challenges, we're also seeing some trends here. The first one being that there's increased pressure because of state legislation on the assessment process. So we know that states like Florida and North Carolina are pushing public institutions to either change their accreditors more frequently or changing their overall assessment process. While there's increasing pressure from state legislation, what we're also seeing is actually a lot of increase in innovation around assessment. So really focus on learning outcomes and competency-based education, making sure that we're really doing a holistic assessment of the student experience, so including co-curricular activities. And, to solve for some of these challenges, adoption of technology and data analytics to really drive that culture of continuous improvement. Lots of big challenges. What are those fundamental tips and best practices that we can kind of ground ourselves in for improvement here? These are easier said than done. I think Mohamed's going to really show us how a solution like assessment management can help out with some of these best practices. But first, for a high-level overview of them, one is really standardization, automation. We know that standardizing templates and processes across institutions really allows for better assessment planning and reporting. It makes it a lot easier to do that reporting. Second, as a lot of you mentioned actually in that challenges slide, it's about building a student-centric faculty assessment culture. So I think what we heard over and over again was that sometimes assessment can really feel like this checkbox item, something that has to be done, but doesn't have a strategic impact to it. And the institutions that do assessment the best are really the ones that are focusing on that strategic impact that's possible with a well-run assessment process. So emphasizing the importance of assessment and promoting a sense of really culture for the faculty so that they are invested in that meaningful data collection process. And finally, it's really about acting on insights. So often there are insights that come out of the assessment process, but it's really difficult to actually implement them and take action on them. So we found is a really important best practice is just closing that loop so that you're ensuring that all these amazing insights that you're collecting actually results in meaningful change for your institution. So some tips and best practices at a high level. Again, these are easier said than done. And up next, we're gonna have Mohamed actually walk through how our assessment management solution can help institutions really meet some of these best practices here. With that, I'll turn over to him.
Perfect. All righty. I will share. I will ask the question. Jen, can you see my screen for assessment?
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. Welcome, everyone. I'll do a quick demo of the assessment product here. This is not meant to be a really full comprehensive look at the assessment product by any means, but just really a showcase of some of the key features in the product. Some of the really important things that I love to call out are the connection to the rest of the Coursedog ecosystem and product set, and the deep integration with the SIS and the LMS. So coming in here first, one of the big challenges really with an assessment product is actually populating it with all of the data that you need to actually run an effective assessment process. And so with our other products that we offer, curriculum, syllabus, catalog, et cetera, we automatically pre-populate a bunch of the data that you need to actually run an effective assessment cycle. So these are things like course data and all the detailed metadata and fields that come with courses. These are things like individual programs here that we're pulling from other parts of the product, et cetera, learning outcomes to really just give you a good head start for running the assessment process. Another big part of the assessment product itself is really the organization that we can help provide for a given assessment plan. So you can come in here into the product and create brand new assessment plans. And these are all created from templates. So the beauty of the assessment product is that it's very flexible. You can actually create templates that really define what data fields do we need in an assessment plan. And you can create different templates for different programs as you need, or one standardized template for the entire institution. And so once you've really defined a template, you can come in here and actually create all the details about the plan. So assessment name, what department, what program, which measures you're using for which given learning outcomes, the effective start date, end date, which learning outcomes you actually want to assess. So we pre-populate that data. And really, this just gives you a great place to align all parties involved on what we are assessing and what is the plan for assessment. And then later on, once you actually do the assessment, we have spaces for you to provide attachments of reports, create narratives around findings, and then when you close the loop, really create action items for the various tasks. So let's take a look at one of the existing plans that we have, this economics plan here. And we can really see these are the learning outcomes that we plan to assess. These are the measures that we've assigned to assess the given learning outcomes. And these are all pulled directly from the LMS. So we can pull assignment level data and really have that data all in one place. Another part of the data unification is the ability to automatically create curriculum maps. So you'll see here a map created based on the courses in the program and the various learning outcomes that are being assessed. Later on in the webinar, we'll talk a great deal about our curriculum mapping feature and a lot of the really cool AI functionality that we're building for this feature. And additional features as well are around student completion. So you can really see the various learning outcomes and how students are doing in various classes. A big part of the assessment product is really how can we automatically pull data from the LMS, from the SIS, and from the other Coursedog products to give you an automatic creation of a lot of tools that really provide a great deal of insights. And at the end, we can create our findings and our action items. And so one of the big parts of this is how do we actually look at measures? What do faculty need to do to provide you with the data? And because of our robust LMS integrations, the answer is nothing. They grade their assignments the same way that they normally would in the LMS, and we automatically, with associations of the learning outcomes, the measures, and the assignments, can pull that data in. So let's take a look at this final exam, for example. We automatically can pull in the gradebook data to see what percentage of our students exceeded, met, approached, and did not meet this requirement. And then that can map fully back to the learning outcomes. This really showcases the strength of being able to pull data from the LMS directly and what that allows you to do on the data analytics side. One of the massive challenges with running an assessment cycle is all of the logistics and work necessary to actually run an effective cycle. You need to check with faculty of actually grading and setting up rubrics properly. A lot of work needs to be done with program coordinators to actually help push the faculty in times when it's needed. And so our very robust workflows functionality can allow you to actually have workflows that you create for given processes. So for example, here, this is for an assessment change or a new assessment plan. You can actually create these robust workflows ahead of time so that every single version of this particular workflow can happen in a consistent way. This is particularly useful for times when you need to look at data and see what's missing, and then send automated emails to program coordinators with the details of what they need from their faculty, et cetera. So very, very robust features here. This has been one of the most exciting features for our existing customers and really allows them to automate away a lot of the minutia and the day-to-day work of running an assessment cycle. Within here as well are the student surveys, which you can create and show within the LMS and have at various parts of the semester. This is a full-fledged form builder where you can actually create various forms, have dynamic fields and forms, and actually pull that data in and be able to see the response and do data analysis on all of this. And then likewise, we have reporting as well in a bunch of settings here. Again, this is not meant to be a really deep dive into the assessment process, just really showing the high-level capabilities that are possible here. This is what we have now. In a bit, I'll talk about kind of our future vision and kind of the direction that we want to take the assessment product, which is really super exciting stuff. So Jen, if we go back to the slides, I can start to discuss those.
Perfect.
Alrighty. So the future of assessment is one where you have time back in your schedule to drive change across campus. This is our view of what assessment should be. Rather than spending all of your time on the mechanics of assessment, you should spend it where you provide the most value. And that's driving change to improve student outcomes. Next slide. Perfect. This vision of freeing up your time all centers around strong integrations and robust AI-powered automations. It all starts with a strong LMS and SIS integration. This ensures that your data is automatically synced and updated. You no longer need to manage CSV exports and imports or deal with stale data. Everything is real-time connected to the SIS and the LMS. So this real-time data is what enables our automations and data analytics. You can set up automations for things like automatically emailing a program coordinator to move along the assessment cycle, as I mentioned. Real-time data also enables really detailed data analytics. So a lot of this is incoming work on the AI side that we'll share later in the webinar. But at the end of the day, with end-to-end automations in place, our goal is to make some massive projects just table stakes for an effective IE/IR program, right? These are things like meeting accreditation requirements, sharing assessment findings across the institution, taking actions based on assessment findings. To take a look at this vision in action, let's take a look at a quick story. And while many of these features are already live, certain AI features are still in development. But I wanted to share some of this work that our AI lab is doing just to give you a sneak peek. So let's start by doing a program review of the accounting BA program. Looking at the course analysis page, right, we see various categories of curricular issues that we can delve into. These are things like blocker courses, high-pale combinations, prereq effectiveness, stop-out courses, et cetera. Now, these are all automated analytics based on the deep LMS and SIS integration I've mentioned before. Taking a look at the prereq effectiveness, we see that Econ 051 has a rather large variance in completion rates across the student population. So let's take a look at this class in particular. So clicking into Econ 51, we see there are 3 allowed prereqs for this course. Students can pick any of these in order to take Econ 51. If you take a look at Math 107 at the bottom, you can see the student completion rate is quite low at 21%. This is the completion rate of students in Econ 51 who took Math 107 as their prereq. And this is all automatically generated directly from the data that we have through our integrations with LMS, SIS, and the other Coursedog products. Now, it's one thing to be able to see the data, but it's another thing to be able to investigate it, right? The real question is, why is the completion rate low? So let's dig deeper. We can start by doing an inventory of the course learning outcomes for this class. Maybe there's something wrong there that we should investigate. And so as we open up the course learning outcomes, you can see our AI-powered learning outcome authoring functionality. We'll talk about this later in the webinar, but this makes it a breeze to author high-quality learning outcomes and catch any poorly written learning outcomes. So here we can accept these changes and automatically kick off a learning outcome edit proposal, and that uses the same workflows that I mentioned previously. All right, we didn't see any major issues here, some nice suggestions, but let's dig into the curriculum map. Maybe there's something there. Clicking into the curriculum map here, the issue is made immensely obvious by our curriculum map auditing tool. Highlighted in red is a gap in our curriculum map. We can see that course learning outcome 1 is being reinforced in Econ 51, but not introduced in Math 107. As you can see, Coursedog is not only able to automatically create the curriculum map, but it's also able to identify gaps in this curriculum map. And we'll talk about more of these features later in the webinar. From here, once we identify this issue, we can create a proposal to create a course learning outcome that is attached to Math 107. Our proposal utilizes the robust workflows I mentioned before to ensure that proper parties are able to give their approvals and have visibility along the way. So everything we've shown is a part of the Coursedog platform as it stands today. We've showed off several of our existing AI functionality, like learning outcome authoring, learning outcome mapping, curriculum mapping, etc. Jenn, if you can go to the next slide. In a second, we'll delve into each one of these, right? These features are upcoming AI features, and they're all a direct result of ongoing discussions with our amazing design partners. I'm really excited with what the team has been able to pull off, bringing together the latest AI technology with the feedback from some of the most forward-facing institutions, allowing us to truly build the future of assessment together. So let's take a look at learning outcome authoring as the first feature. So this is something we discussed in the story here. We can dive into what this tool does. We've heard over and over about the challenges of faculty writing learning outcomes. Our learning outcome authoring tool makes it easy for faculty and program coordinators to author new learning outcomes. Our AI model is trained on industry best practices, as well as the particular requirements and guidelines of your institution. This allows us to provide assistance at the moment of authoring an outcome, but also provides an auditing functionality for previous outcomes and flags opportunities for improvement. And with this feature, authoring teams can really create learning outcomes like it's a breeze. The real beauty of this feature is that it takes the best practices from industry, from accreditors, from industry events. We really pull all that data. And then also it can take your institutional data to really hone in on how you would like learning outcomes to be authored, providing consistency across all LOs across the institution. Moving on to the next slide, we can take a look at our learning outcome mapping functionality. So maintaining correctly mapped ILOs, PLOs, CLOs, it's no easy task. This becomes especially true when you're editing or adding learning outcomes. And this is true whether you're adding a new ILO and need to create the downstream mappings, or you add a new CLO and need to ensure the correct upstream mappings. This learning outcome mapping tool makes it easy to correct map outcomes at the moment of authoring. And it also makes it easy to identify incorrectly mapped outcomes that you already have. And so the result is a highly accurate LO mapping structure that allows us to automatically create an alignment map to visualize all of this. And so on the next slide, you'll see the results of this automatic LO mapping and suggestion functionality. You get this really nice way to visualize the connections and relationships across all of your learning outcomes. Now, this is a game changer for helping institutions at large understand how their part fits into the larger picture. And it also makes it easier to start to have a discussion around modifications and improvements of learning outcomes when you can see the whole thing in one place.
Mohamed, do you mind if I pause you for a second? We're getting just a few comments about the confidence in really using AI to generate these learning outcomes, rather than relying on the expertise of faculty, that it could borrow from terrible examples or generic outcomes rather than something that really is going to actually drive improvement at an institution, and kind of what are the challenges and maybe even concerns with using AI in assessment. I know that internally, we've actually had a lot of discussions around this. You and I have had some debates and conversations. I thought maybe it might make sense to actually take a pause and for you to explain how we're kind of thinking about these considerations, knowing it's really important for our customers.
Yeah, the question of learning outcome authoring and the implications of AI here, as Jen mentioned, something we've talked about internally quite a bit, and then with the existing customers quite a bit as well. At the end of the day, the goal here is really to make it easy for faculty to author their learning outcomes and program coordinators, et cetera. The goal is not to write the learning outcome for you, right? The process of actually figuring out what the learning outcome should be is immensely important for institutions. The process of figuring out what is the correct verbiage and how many commas should we have, what is the correct length, just the tedious aspect of actually writing a great learning outcome is where we come in and where we provide a system. And so the AI is not automatically learning from bad examples. We've actually handcrafted the guidance and knowledge that's being used. So we've meticulously gone through a lot of the best practice and instructions from accreditors, as well as some experts that we've been consulting with to really create the guidelines for what is an amazing learning outcome, right? So that sets the baseline for what our AI does. In addition to that, you as an institution can set your own guidelines as well. And these could overwrite the ones that we've created or be a complement and an addition to those guidelines. So at the end of the day, what this AI should be is if you from the assessment team, from the IEIR team, is sitting next to each faculty as they're writing their learning outcomes, sitting next to each program coordinator as they're writing their PLOs, and really are able to provide assistance in how to best craft a learning outcome, that's what this functionality is meant to be. Now, is this going to fully replace the need to write a learning outcome? Absolutely not. At the end of the day, the process and the exercise of thinking about what the learning outcome should be and how many we should have and what they plan to cover, that's part of creating the curriculum, and that's not something that AI should take over. What AI should do is really take care of all of the stuff around that really takes up time from this core initiative. Was there anything else, Jen? I feel like I kind of gave the rant that I give internally, but is there anything I missed in your question?
No, that was super helpful. And I think I asked the exact same question to you when you first started developing this idea. And I think what you said back really clearly was, we don't want to take away from faculty members actually writing these learning outcomes. We don't want AI auto-generating a lot of these reports. It's more about simplifying these processes and creating recommendations or feedback that result in better outcome. That's perfect.
I think of it kind of like a Grammarly for learning outcomes, right? Like Grammarly is not going to write your college essay for you, but it's definitely going to help you avoid some of the grammar mistakes and just make the process easier for you, right? And so, yeah, 100%. All righty. I think we can go on to the curriculum maps. I think back one slide, maybe. Perfect. Cool. So moving on to our curriculum maps, I'm really excited by the AI-powered auditing functionality that we have here. So we can automatically generate the curriculum maps based on the data that we have from the various systems we're integrated with. But we're also able to flag issues in competency progression. So this is doable by hand when you're looking at a linear course progression. Course A goes to course B, goes to course C. But when you take into account various course paths, like what we had in our example before, there are 3 prereqs, and you can take any of these prereqs before you take the next course, it gets very hairy very quickly and very complicated. So in our previous example, there were these 3 prereqs for Econ 51. While 2 of them properly had introduced course learning outcome 1, Math 107 didn't. And so these are the kind of gaps that our AI-powered curriculum map auditing tool will really help identify. On to the action items. So this and the following functionality are things that are still in our R&D lab. So this is stuff that's not ready yet for use, but I just want to give a sneak peek into what we're working on. And first, we have our recommended action items. So we know that one of the most important parts of assessment is actually implementing change based on the results. Our AI-based suggested action items will provide suggestions for what action items can be taken based on the findings of the assessment cycle. So this tool can also help to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks by highlighting deficiencies identified in the assessment plan that have no action items associated with them. So from our previous example, rather than you having to manually investigate the missing CLO, this AI feature would automatically detect the issue and create a suggested action item. From here, it's totally in your hands to accept or decline the suggestion. And so while it's still in R&D, we've seen some pretty exciting results so far. Lastly, the last feature we're going to go through is we're ending with a research project that I'm personally most excited about. And this is actually using AI to help with the writing of the accreditation report itself. And so going back to the question I got about learning outcome authoring, it's really not meant to write the report for you or help you sidestep the work, but it's really meant to accelerate and enable you to write the best accreditation report possible. And so we all know that writing this report is extremely stressful and a taxing exercise on your institution. These reports can easily be hundreds of pages long, requiring a great deal of collaboration and project management. So there are 3 main ways that we're looking to use AI to help with this process. And remember, this feature and the one before for suggested action items are still in R&D, not launched just yet. But the first of these features here for accreditation report writing is surfacing the best practices from your accreditors and industry events on how to answer each question in the report. Additionally, we can also include institutional specific guidelines to tweak this to your school's needs. So basically, we are taking the best practices that we've gotten from the accreditors themselves, plus the suggestions and advice of our design partners to really help give suggestion and advice for what makes a great answer to the various questions in the report. This can be augmented with your own institutional guidelines as well. So there's the industry best practice, but then also your institution can have an additional layer of guidelines for how to write these reports. The second way we help is by surfacing the correct data right in the sidebar to help you create a compelling narrative. And this is one of the most exciting features right here, which is our analytics Q&A feature, which can pull data, generate reports, create graphs, etc., by having access, again, to LMS data, SIS data, and the data within the rest of the Coursedog platform. So rather than chasing around data, you can focus on writing the report itself. Any data that you need, you can actually ask the assistant in the sidebar, and it'll pull it for you. And lastly, we've built in project management features directly into the product that help you track the progress of the report and any outstanding action items. So this is a game changer for helping everyone have a clear idea of the report's progress and status. So while this feature is still in its infancy, more information will come out later. I really do see great potential in this.
And I think, Mohamed, this is a great example of how we're trying to create basically more time and the ability to really invest in the actual report versus some of the technical challenges of actually writing the report, like getting all the right amounts of data, like finding all the sources that you might need to actually then cite in the report. So taking out some of that planning and kind of the miscellaneous investment that you had to put into the report versus actually, being able to write a really strong report itself.
Exactly. So it's really helping resolve all of the issues and challenges, just the logistical challenges of getting the right data, having the guidelines on how to write the best report, And then also once you write the report, we give kind of a score on how well we think the answer does based on the guidelines and the data that we found.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, these are features that we're actually currently developing. So if folks are interested in giving their perspectives here, I feel very confident that we would love to hear from all of you and really understand how you see this feature actually being used at your institution. What are ways to improve it? What are things that you feel like wouldn't be so helpful? All of that feedback would be awesome, and we'll provide our contact information at the end here so you can directly reach out.
Yeah, actually, if you go to the next slide, Jen, that was exactly what I was going to say. So everything that we've built so far or that we experiment with is the direct results of our design partners who we're working with. And we do have a couple spots open for design partnership. So if anyone is interested, please do reach out. Next slide, please. And so if you're interested, definitely shoot me an email at assessment@coursedog.com. This information comes directly to me, to my inbox. And we have a poll question here now. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely hit yes, and we'll follow up, or shoot me an email directly.
Our end goal here is really to make sure some of these new features are, focused on student outcomes and driving that strategic impact. So also, if you're just interested again in providing that feedback, feel free to say yes as well. We'll definitely proactively reach out to you.
Corey, did you have something?
No, sorry, I accidentally raised my hand.
No worries. Jen, whenever you think, we can go to the next slide.
Perfect.
Perfect. So assessment@Coursedog is the inbox that goes to me directly. But if you're interested in learning more about any of the other Coursedog offerings, definitely reach out to the sales team. They can really help you get a full idea of, the entirety of the Coursedog platform and all the various offerings that we have.
And our platform is built to be kind of a la carte. So you don't have to, buy the entirety of the platform to be a Coursedog user. You can start out with just curriculum, just class scheduling, just assessment, etc. We'll give folks a few seconds here.
Absolutely. And as we do that, Corey, if you could just maybe pick out some of your favorite questions, we could try to answer them live. We do have some time here that we could use for answering questions.
Yeah, sure. So I think we had a question about preloaded templates for specific accrediting agencies. I think this could be relevant, particularly with the accreditation report writing, if you want to address that.
Yeah, so we're working on creating as many templates as we can. Right now, we have the main accrediting bodies, SAC, COC, et cetera. We are also expanding into professional accreditations and really looking into how we would be able to offer that within the accreditation report writing product, but then also within the assessment management product at large. So we have the main accrediting bodies across the country, and we're digging into the professional ones now.
I think we also had another question about Coursedog Copilot suggestions. People are just wondering, I guess, what's that relationship between that as well as the Microsoft Copilot AI engine?
So it doesn't use the Microsoft Copilot product. Funny enough, before Coursedog, I used to run an AI startup. Before that, I used to work on the Microsoft AI and research team. And the team that I used to work in is the team that is now the Microsoft Copilot team. So it's a very funny coincidence that kind of I'm here working on the Coursedog Copilot. It uses a lot of the same technology. So under the hood, it uses large language models, GPT-4 to really dig through all of the data within Coursedog and be able to answer the questions that you have. So it works the exact same way that Microsoft Copilot does, but it's not Microsoft Copilot within Coursedog. It's our own homegrown built version of that. And so the beauty of that product is it really allows you to get answers kind of on demand and on command. Any questions you have, you can ask there, and it'll respond in the correct format. So if it's just a sentence response, it'll do that. If it's a graph, it'll show you the graph. If it's a full Excel worksheet, it'll create that for you to download.
We also have a question about, do students and faculty interact with the assessment tool within the LMS at all, or does it only pull data from the LMS?
Primarily it's pulling data from the LMS. There are a couple of touch points within the LMS that students and faculty would use, namely course evaluations would show up in the LMS. So the students would be able to answer those fully there, or they can get a link to do it elsewhere. So a big push there has been mobile friendliness, and folks be able to actually answer these course surveys on their phone. And so you can actually send links to people that they can open on their phone, that you could post on QR codes across campus. We've seen some folks do that. But then also within the LMS, you have this. The main value prop really of Coursedog assessment as it relates to the LMS is that faculty don't have to change their workflows. We're automatically pulling the data that they enter into the various rubrics and the gradebook into the assessment product. Okay. There is something we're working on now. This isn't out yet, but maybe by Q4 it should be, which is actually the ability to visualize the data of the assessment cycle within the LMS. So faculty, our product pulls the data automatically, and as the assessment cycle comes to an end and we're closing the loop, the faculty are able to actually visualize that directly within the LMS. We have this functionality right now within our web app, but we've heard requests that faculty don't want to log into Coursedog. They want to be able to see everything directly within Canvas, for example.
Okay. And then we also have a question. Can you pull a report to see how many action item statuses were changed to complete, or how many SLO measures were exceeded? I guess maybe just talk about the reporting a little bit more.
Yeah, so right now, the reporting functionality as we have it today does not include that in transparency. But we have some features that should be landing by the end of Q3 that will enable that. And so this is actually the same Q&A functionality that we have within the accreditation report writing, the right-hand sidebar that I just discussed, the Copilot. We're bringing some early versions of that to the reporting tool as is. So this would allow you to basically ask questions of the AI and pull those reports. In addition, we're also creating kind of traditional UI experiences to have a more full-fledged and robust reporting functionality.
I think those are all the questions that we have in the Q&A. So Jenn and Mohamed, if you guys want to take it back and I guess finish us off.
Perfect.
I think Susan might have her hands raised. Is there a way to unmute her? Or Susan, if you want to type in your question in the chat box, just make sure we get to it.
Oh, there she is. It feels like a talk show now. Susan, I believe you're still muted. In addition, if there are any questions that we didn't get to or you think about after the fact, definitely shoot us an email. We'll get back with all answers as soon as possible.
Sounds great. I think if there are no more questions, really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. Like Mohamed said, definitely feel free to reach out either to assessment@coursedog.com or sales@coursedog.com. We're really excited to speak to more of you and learn more about your own assessment accreditation processes.
Yeah. And Susan, if we're not able to get you off of mute, definitely shoot me an email and I'll get back. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.